Good evening, Julien. How are you doing?
Good morning, Max. I'm doing fantastic today.
Oh,
Um,
that's good.
I'm doing very good. And the story I'm going to share is not such a good one, but I'm in good mood. So I'm gonna, give it
Okay.
some good angle here.
Well,
Um,
grab a comfy spot on the couch and let's get going.
that's always comfortable chatting with you. So this story is about a famous brand. Um, you might have heard of them. They do furniture and they're coming from the Nordics.
Okay.
And before I start complaining and whining, I want to be very clear about one thing is I admire this brand, like many other brands. I mean, I admire Netflix for how creative they got when the industry was going one way and they went the other. I'm a big admirer of Amazon as well, because everyone is complaining nowadays about this huge monopoly they are starting to build. But the truth is, 30 years ago, no one would have believed in them, and today they are so big. And I think that's furniture brand is the same thing. If you think about it, 30 years ago, who would have thought that they could become so big and reinvent the way we shop for furniture?
Right. Right.
So you may love them or you may hate them, but at some point they created something new and they understood what customer experience really means. And I mean this. I mean, now you could actually spend your weekend, probably before the pandemic, but you could actually spend a good portion of your weekend walking the aisles of their stores instead of going to the woods or to the park or to the local lake.
I've I've gone to their store to just enjoy the experience of being there with no intention of buying anything. Yeah,
Right. And,
I've
and
done
that's
that.
amazing. I mean, getting your customers to genuinely come to your store just for browsing around, every marketer dreams of getting this kind
Right.
of
Right.
situation, right? So from that perspective, they're very smart and their brand promise is pretty clear. I mean, you can complain all you want about the quality. You can complain all you want about the fact that it's very, you can mount it, but don't try to dismantle it because it's going to break. You can complain all you
Right.
want, but their brand promises we're going to make it simple, we're going to make it affordable, and we're going to make it somehow stylish. And usually they hit the 3 points. And from a customer experience perspective, that's fantastic. Now, in the past, I've been complaining about them using third parties for delivery. I've been complaining about them using third parties for mounting their furniture because usually the third party doesn't care as much as the general brand. And it's a terrible experience. The experience I'd like to share today is about their hotline because there was this
Hmm.
item that I really want to buy. And I went on their website and they ran out of stock. And on the website, they were saying, just call our hotline and we'll tell you when you will get stock again. So I did call the hotline, even though I found it quite surprising that the info was not directly on the website, because I think everything is probably linked. But
Much more
okay,
useful that way.
well, whatever. I call them up. And then I got the traditional IVR. And the IVR, I go through it. It's pretty clear, by the way. And then it tells me, okay, if you want to get information about a specific product stock, if you have the reference number, press 1. If you don't have the reference number, press 2, and you'll talk to one of our advisor, whatever name they used. I could have had the reference number, but I was not in front of my computer, so hey, forget it. I mean, that's their own store. They should be able to find out.
Right. Right.
So I waited on the line, not so long. That was probably 8-9 minutes, which is still acceptable. And then I talked to someone whose first question was, what's the reference number? I said, well, the whole
Oops.
point of waiting 8 minutes instead of typing it is I don't have the reference
Oh.
number. So I was hoping you could help me out. So this is a name of the product, which I did manage to both pronounce and spell, which trust me is not always easy with this store.
Right. Right.
I could describe it because I know sometimes within the same collection they have several items with using the same name. I could give the exact color, size, everything. Just I did not have the 16 digits or whatever that is reference number. And the guy's feedback was, "Sir, do you have any idea how many products we have? You think I know all of them by heart?"
Oh my God. Seriously?
And I was like, well, if you don't know your products, how am I supposed to know
Why
your
the hell
product?
would I know?
Well, if you don't have the reference number, I can't help you. I said, well, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my phone. and try while we're talking to browse in the same time on your website to find your product and get you your reference number. And apparently, I, as a customer, am more armed to find this kind of information than you working for the brand. And I was a little bit upset, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
And in the end, he gave me an answer, politely ended the conversation. The answer ended up not being accurate, but I guess there could be a million reasons for that. And that was a very frustrating experience. And the reason for that is I found it pretty rude and really helpless. And why would you give me such a IVR experience if in the end you don't even know what's happening there? Right?
That you just hit the nub of the whole thing, I think, right there. The fact that the IVR and the person had different messages. It's laughable, but it's not. That it said, if you don't know the number, press 2. You press 2, and the first thing he says is, "What's the number?"
Exactly.
I mean that's just epic fail right there. I mean, it's not okay to say you got to know the number, but you can look it up online. I mean, if that's the rule, admit it in your IVR. If that's not the rule, then teach your reps that this, no, if someone can describe it to you, you have to look it up. That's your job. That's what we're paying you to do.
And I think that both ways, it would have been very much okay. I mean, if the IVR told me, look, you need the reference number, but we can tell you exactly where to find it on the website, which
Yes.
I knew anyway, I would have been back on the website.
You're right. If press 2 had been, here's your instructions to find the part number, it wouldn't have been as good of an experience. But if for whatever reason it's not, they just decided that's how they're going to do things, I wouldn't recommend. That's just an outright fail, and it doesn't seem that hard.
So what could they have done differently? I mean, from a brand perspective, what would be your advice? What should have been done differently to get a different outcome here?
I think it sounds to me like it's an agent training issue. That would be that agent should have been ready to go to find that for you.
And I'm probably not the only customer with a similar issue, right?
I'm
assuming
no, and this person lives and breathes this stuff. He's in front of a terminal that has that information 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, assuming that's his work week. Why would you not make it very good? Now, what would be interesting is, was this a bad agent who was being lazy and not doing his job, or was it not communicated clearly to this agent that this is what you're supposed to do?
Well, considering the tone, I would assume that was a bad agent because anyway, he didn't have the right manners. That's not what I would expect from. That's not what I usually get from customer service, and I'm not a difficult one. I'm usually pretty easygoing when I call a hotline. So I would assume that's a bad agent. But the first problem is probably IVR refresh. You want to refresh and test your own IVR every now and then. Assuming that the IVR was correct and the agent was wrong, there is listening to phone calls. Now, you do it randomly. Right. You can't listen into every phone call. But considering the feedback I gave to the survey, they probably should have called me back because it was like 5-6 days ago now. So they had plenty of time to call me back and probably take some action as well and listen to that specific call to see how it went. Because when something goes wrong, you need to fix it, right?
And it's a good call for analytics where, wow, I've gotten 3 or 4 complaints about the difficulty of looking up numbers. Let's go search and find some calls with that, and let's see how that's breaking down. I mean, that would be a great big duh.
But as I said when I started that conversation, I think this experience did not go well. But I think generally speaking, they respect their brand values and they deliver on what they promise. So I guess I'll go back there again on Sunday.
There you go. Okay, so we'll blame the agent. Let's just do that.
All right, we'll do it for this week.
We'll rename this whole thing Blame the Agent.
All right, that's what I'm going to do this time, but I promise I'll find a better excuse next time.
All right. You feel better, Julien?
I feel so much better. Thank you, Max. And I promise next week, that's for you to cry on my shoulder.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you, Max. Bye.